Awesome, that's in place. This session will now be recorded. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to our session today. We have a really special session on hand. Thank you to Tim Hanowich and Joe Alexander, who are presenters today. And we're excited to bring you a session on accelerating and automating your Power Platform development using a new capability called Plan Designer. In this session, we'll explore the new Plan Designer experience, which is designed to streamline how makers build, manage, and scale end-to-end business solutions. Many thanks to everyone that was involved, but especially one of our solution engineer managers, Craig. He has been instrumental. He's been working with our product team in the background to get this capability into GCC tenants. So as of this morning, you can actually enable this in your own GCC tenant. A lot of that will be spoken about today by Tim and Joe, but extremely exciting stuff. Um, we aim to provide a digital event that respects all individuals. We ask that everyone assist in providing a welcoming and safe environment. We bring 3 of these events to our customers every month, with each taking place on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. If there is a topic that you'd like to hear about in the future, please post that in the chat, and we will consider that for the future. We also have a feedback form that'll be available at the end for you to share there. To minimize distractions or potential background noise today, we're going to leverage the chat for questions. So post them there anytime during today's session, and we'll get them answered for you. Additionally, we do send follow-ups via email. So if you registered, you're on our follow-up list, and these follow-ups will contain the recording that is used by or that you'll see here today, a video recording of our presenters and our content. If you don't want to be included in the follow-ups in the future, please reply, and we'll simply take you off of our distribution list. So with that, thank you, Tim and Joe, for presenting on this topic today. Whenever you're ready, take it away.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much, Kelly. And I see that number approaching 100 people on the call today. So again, thank you all for being here, and thank you for your attention, first of all. Today we have a really cool new feature in our Power Platform called Plan Designer to show you today, a new really cool AI feature, one of which we've shared amongst many others in the past before. But if you're like me, you've probably been watching how many new AI features are out there already across the entire Microsoft portfolio and even other portfolios out there. And every day I'm still astounded and very happy to live in the time that we're in right now. It's a very special time for sure. In fact, some of you might know, but I would guess most of you don't know, but we are actually in a very pivotal time right now in history called, by many experts, the AI boom, largely sparked by the massive success of ChatGPT in late 2022, but a time of tremendous level of investment and growth and functionality of AI. And you've probably seen companies like ourselves, for example, with Microsoft and Amazon and Google and OpenAI and plenty of others rapidly investing into building out the core infrastructure required to provide AI at a massive scale globally. And on the flip side, you've also probably seen private businesses, governments, or other orgs rapidly investing their time, their energy, their resources into figuring out ways to embed AI to either improve their offerings or drive internal efficiencies. And so, again, a time of tremendous growth that I love being a part of today. But of course, at times like this, it can kind of make your head spin. And so I first want today to take one step back and say, how does the rapid investment that we've seen over the last few years, how does that tie into the overall history of our industry and technology, but also in the lens of through Microsoft, right? And Microsoft has been around for some time now. I think maybe some of you here might know, but it was founded by Bill Gates and Paul Allen in '75, actually in Albuquerque. But over its period since then, it's kind of transformed over time. In fact, its common thread has been empowering developers. In fact, in the 80s, it gained success and attention through MS-DOS and BASIC, where now a developer did not need a mainframe to write code, right? Now they could make code via MS-DOS on their computer in their office. Then came the 90s, and the 90s brought about the birth of the modern day OS with Windows 95. And on Windows, you could write your own applications and, for example, Visual Basic.net, VB.net, or maybe C#2, and write your own apps directly on your computer for your own computer. Then came the 2000s, which is when our investment into Azure, the global hyperscale computer, began, where we're building out now a massive global system for you to now host and rent infrastructure for your apps and thus reach global scale. Then came the 2010s, which is when the no-code, no-code, low-code revolution was brought about by the Power Platform that allowed truly anybody to become a maker. So now you did not need to know C# or .NET or SQL to write your code or write an app. Now you do so simply with Power Apps or Power Automate with no-code, low-code technology. And now today, in 2025 and beyond, the access to technology and development has now been democratized more than ever. So now truly to build something, you don't need to code whatsoever. You simply need to be able to describe what you want to an AI machine, and that machine, that system, will create that solution for you. And again, the common theme over time here has been Microsoft's goal of democratizing development and lowering that barrier to entry over time. And we've done that decade over time. And today, Copilot is really the tip of the spear in doing that, where now truly all you have to do is describe what you want to a system. And just like that, your idea is turned to a solution in no time. And again, that theme or that brand that we put on any AI-infused offering of our platform is usually called Copilot. And Copilot, being a very broad theme, a very broad brand there, has many flavors across our entire Copilot portfolio. And so maybe you've seen Copilot be used in the past for more personal use cases, like, for example, planning your vacation to Italy, maybe for helping you, surf the web, help you figure out a recipe for cookies possibly. Or maybe you've used it already to summarize your Teams meeting, or maybe to build out your Excel spreadsheet. Or if you're very technical, maybe to be your pair programmer through GitHub Copilot, making you a more efficient and more or a stronger developer overall. And today, we are happy to show you the sort of the newest offering of our AI portfolio called Plan Designer that allows you to turn an idea to a solution within minutes. Now, if you're like me, if you come from software, you probably know the process, the cumbersome process to go from idea to a workable solution for testing, right? Oftentimes, this is a multi-stage process that might be a multi-day, multi-week, sometimes even multi-month process of listening to the business, being knowledgeable of their needs and requirements, and then trying to ideate on a possible end solution and end state, then planning out how to build that over time through a team, then writing code, and then building it, and then testing it. And only after that 4 or 5 stage process at that point do you have a workable POC or a workable MVP to show to the business and say, this is what we're thinking, what do you think? And then iterate from there, of course. Again, this process usually would take anywhere between days to weeks to possibly even months for large scale projects. And the cool thing today is with Plan Designer, that 5-stage, multi-week, multi-month process can now be consolidated down to simply describing what you want, your overall solution, desires and interests and dreams into what we call Plan Designer. And Plan Designer will plan out for you the entire solution and even help you build it. So now, truly, you don't need to understand .NET. You do not need to understand enterprise Power Platform architecture or designing for that matter. Simply describe what you want to the system and it will help you build out the first draft, the first iteration of that system. And again, as Kelly mentioned earlier, we're very happy to report as of this morning that this system is confirmed to be working in GCC. So if you're in a GCC cloud, which I bet today most of you are, it actually in fact is in GCC right now. It does require a toggle of a switch in their settings for your tenant, but it is today in GCC fully functional. So that's great news for us today. And so today's plan, of course, is to show you sort of how to use Plan Designer and show it to you and how it works. And so for that, we of course have to have some use case to work on. And so I thought more about what do we possibly show today? And I thought about how big and how rural Texas is, absolutely massive state in the US. And in fact, I saw in the statistics there that 17% of the population of the state, so 5 million people, live in very, rural, off-grid areas of West and North Texas. And these people, of course, being where they are, oftentimes don't have access to a municipal water source. So, of course, what they do is they rely on a well on their property for everything from uh, irrigation, livestock, bathing, but most importantly, of course, for drinking water. And so naturally, these wells being used for even drinking water for humans, the constant and ongoing regular inspection of them and their quality of water is very important to maintain the health of these people that drink from it. And so this story needs a hero. Somebody here has to, on a normal basis, be inspecting the quality here. And maybe if you're in Texas, you might already know who that is, of course. But that hero, of course, here is TCEQ, which is the Commission of Environmental Quality for Texas. And TCEQ employs inspectors, of course, that go out to the field normally, and they will go to each property owner and they will work with them. They will perform a test of quality of the water. They will test its chemical analyses, first of all, its quality, and ensure that it's safe to be had by a human. And so I wanted today to pretend that we are a manager at TCEQ. And our goal, of course, we've been charged with building out a digital system to accommodate the inspections of these wells. And so as the manager, obviously in our head, we probably go through like a wish list of what the solution should have to accommodate all of my requirements. And so think, for example, number one, I would have to have a mobile application for my inspectors to then use as they go out to the field to wells. And that app will be used, of course, on a tablet or a phone, maybe, possibly even in an offline scenario for the inspector to input data about the inspection itself. So, for example, pH level and stuff like that, right? So that's number one. Number two, we also probably want another application for somebody here at TCEQ, maybe in more of a back office type role, keyboard and mouse scenario on a PC and on an office space, to then go through and review that data from the inspectors. Thirdly, we might also want a public portal for the public to go to and then find the data from their well inspections on that portal. And then as such, today, especially today in the 2020s, we also probably want a chatbot, an AI-based chatbot to embed on that portal to further help the public navigate the portal overall and also understand their inspection results. And then finally, if somebody, let's just say, for example, somebody on the portal via a form or possibly via the agent chatbot requests assistance from us, we might want an email to be automatically delivered to somebody here at TCEQ to alert them of that and then help them find a way of dispatching somebody to visit them sometime soon. And so as the manager here at TCEQ, this would be my wish list. And as you all probably know today, the medium that we now use to describe to an AI system what we want is oftentimes a prompt. And so I now want to pass it over to my peer, Joe, who will show you how we can turn this wish list into a prompt to feed to Plan Designer. So Joe, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. And good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you're at here. As Tim said, the Plan Designer is really a great tool here for us moving forward. And it's something, quite honestly, that we've been waiting for a while, and very excited to be able to share with you today the fact that it's actually in GC. As Tim mentioned, any good AI starts with a prompt, right? If any of you are in either a Copilot, ChatGPT, any of those components, really, you can kind of start to think of this as the prompt engineering. We're only good as the prompts we give the application and give the AI, right? If we give it a single sentence prompt, we're probably going to get get a very wide range of responses. If we get a little more detail than what we're asking for, it'll be a little bit, it'll give us a better feedback. So when we start talking about leveraging AI to start building applications and building workflows, et cetera, I'd encourage you all to spend more time up front on this prompt engineering than maybe you're typically thinking, because ultimately that's going to give you better responses. But in order to use Plan Designer, we have to work through this prompt piece. And so we're going to kind of build out what some of those prompts are here today. Okay. Let me go ahead. I'm actually going to share this a different way with you guys since that wasn't working. We'll share my whole screen. Awesome. So this is our prompt, and Kelly and Tim, if you can just verify what you're seeing here as our prompt screen, that would be great.
We do see it, Joe. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So the first thing I want to do as part of this prompt is let the AI know who I am and what I do. Okay. It's important to put that into context. Okay. Hey, I work at Texas Commission for Environmental Equality. I run the well water inspection safety program. So that's kind of number one I want to put in. Number two I want to put in is I want to try to describe the solution. So I need a solution, as Tim mentioned, that will allow me to facilitate the process of well inspections in the remote areas of Texas. I'm not going to read this whole summary, but you can take a look at it, right? It puts in various elements around there, around safe and reliable drinking, transparent access to the public, et cetera. So that becomes kind of the description of what we're trying to accomplish. Prompt three is I'm starting to now laying out each part of the solution that you're going to need. You realize that as that manager, I'm going to need some sort of app for a remote and field inspector, right? And here's some of the things that we typically will capture as part of that inspection, things like pH level, turbidity, temperature, things along those lines. So you can put as much detail as you want into this to ensure that the AI model is looking at this and saying, okay, I know what you're looking for. I can provide more context around it. And you'll see each of the next three sections on here are specifically around certain components. So I need an app for the environmental compliance coordinator, right? So after the inspection is done in the field, I need an app for somebody behind a desk back in the office who can do things like schedule follow-ups or issue notices or advisories. And you'll see as I'm continuing to build this prompt, it's just providing me with additional information. Hey, I'd like to have a public portal for landowner owners. I'd like to have a public chatbot agent, right, that the members of the public can interact with. And then ultimately, I'd also like to have an email notification upon a member of the public submitting a form for assistance on the portal, right? So we're spending time in building out this prompt up front because the more detailed information we give to this prompt up front, the better result we're going to get on the back end. And that's across the board with any AI application. So we've built our prompt. Okay, this is kind of our starting point here. As we move forward now, I want to introduce you to Plan Designer, right? This is Plan Designer directly within Power Apps. You'll notice on the left-hand side there, there's a new component called Apps, as well as a center section where we can go ahead and paste the prompt that we've developed into Plan Designer itself. And this is the prompt that Plan Designer is going to use to be able to start putting together a structure for a plan itself. Now, I think it's important to also point out that a plan is actually not deploying. A plan is separate from solutions, separate from apps. It is a organization of business processes, user profiles, potential artifacts you're going to be using to address your use case. But it starts with this prompt. So once we pasted that prompt into here, we go in and we hit generate. And you'll see it now takes us to a screen where a number of different things are happening here, right? It's initially going through our business problem itself and trying to define, again, our business problem that we've given it and the purpose of the plan. Okay. If you look in the upper right-hand corner of this section also, you'll see a drop-down of a few areas: requirements agents, data agents, solution agents. These are all steps that we're going to go through as part of this process for Plan Designer. It's going to determine what your requirements are. It's then going to provide you with data that can help support those requirements. And ultimately, it's going to take us to this position where we can now add artifacts into a solution. Because think of it this way. when I'm building this out, I'm going to spend time defining my requirements, defining my users, and then I'm probably going to work one by one through, hey, what kind of application am I going to build? What kind of workflow do I need? What kind of agent do I need? Do I need a Power Pages or a website? And that does that all through that solution agent we'll see shortly here. But it starts with the requirements piece. So as part of that requirements piece, again, if I expand the business problem, you're going to see the entire problem we put into there, as well as the real specific purpose of the plan. And then it gets down initially into user requirements, right? And you can see these requirements: a remote field inspector, environmental compliance coordinator, a landowner. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you're also able to see this in kind of a very structured way over on the right here, right? Where we can see those remote field inspectors and those landowners, etc. In each one of these sections, as you're working through the Plan Designer, you're going to see this box that also appears in the lower left-hand corner. It's going to give you the ability to say, hey, what you've put together as an AI model looks good, let's proceed. Or it's going to say, hey, we need to make some changes to it. Let's go ahead and edit some of this information. And we're going to see both of those elements here moving forward today. So again, as I kind of scroll, zoom out a little, you're able to see all of those personas that we're going to be doing on that page. And those look good to me. So I'm just going to look good for the time being. It now takes us to a real powerful way of actually developing our data model. So based off the information we've given it, it's saying, hey, here are the entities or tables we think you're going to need. And if you're able to click on that Show Details button, it actually takes you to an ERD kind of diagram where I can see all those tables. I can see the inspector table that was generated, and you'll see that they were all generated with AI. A well table, compliance coordinator, assistance request, notice advisory, as well as all of the relationships between each one of those tables as well. Really, really powerful piece there. You'll also notice as part of this process, on the right-hand side, we have Copilot. Copilot is obviously embedded throughout our platform, and that's no different here within Plan Designer, because we recognize that, hey, AI isn't going to get it right every time, right? They may have gotten the personas right, but maybe there's some changes we need to make here at the table level. Now, you can catch some of those changes now. Also, once these tables are created down the line, you can also make modifications at any point in the future. But by using Copilot, I can come directly into here and say, hey, you know what? We have forgotten an element. There is a piece that is missing here. And I'm going to use some natural language just to be able to say, hey, here's what I actually need to be able to create. So I'm going to go down here into Copilot. And I'm going to tell Copilot, add a column named employee ID. And I'm going to tell what table to set it to. And what you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner is now by doing that, it adds that inspector ID number directly to that table. So while we're talking here about, putting the plan together, we can get really granular at this point to say, hey, there's some obvious things that are missing that we need to address. And we can do so directly from Plan Designer here before even moving on to the next steps in the process, because we want to make sure our data is accurate and consistent. As we scroll back out here and move back out to the Plan Designer piece itself here, again, we have kind of the same kind of look and feel. Again, those user profiles, the data model there, and then the ability to also validate whether or not the data agent has given us the right data there. And we're just going to go ahead at this point and say, yes, we have. It moves us then into the technology or solution part of this, where you can see that third row down has given us a list of artifacts that we potentially would want to use in the system. You can see those artifacts. There's a Canvas app for a remote field inspector in the upper left. It's suggesting using a model-driven app for the compliance coordinator app. It's giving you a suggestion for a website for the public well inspection and even an agent for the public assistance chatbot. And then it's also giving you suggestions for 2 Power Automate flows there on the bottom. So not only is the AI suggesting and giving you framework for what the applications or UI is going to look like, it's also giving you suggestions for the actual flows that could be working in the background there. So let's go ahead and take a look at that and say, hey, we need to actually make an edit to this. I can come down here, I can hit the edit button, and I want to remove that inspection submission notifier workflow. That's not something I really need. Yeah, it added in here because maybe it thinks it would be helpful, but I can kind of like nip this in the bud and just say, hey, this isn't really something I need. I can say remove it. And what you'll see here momentarily is that it simply goes in, it understands what I'm trying to accomplish, and it removes that from the list of 5 items of technology that it would suggest. And you'll see that it's also removed it from kind of that tree structure on the right-hand side is there. I can go ahead and keep that, look good. And now once I've defined that those are it, the next step is to actually save the tables here. When I save those tables, it takes all these elements that we're going to be built and it creates a new solution. And here it's created the water well inspection hub solution. So for those of you who are familiar with using solutions and packaging up all the different artifacts that you want to use to address a business use case, it creates that solution. And any changes you're making from App Plan Designer moving forward will all be sent directly into that solution itself, which is really neat. So at this point, we've created all of those tables. We've built that solution. We have the data, the structure behind it. The one thing it hasn't done, and it doesn't do automatically, is it doesn't actually create all of those technology components for you right on the fly. I actually like this about this feature because it makes you go in and say, okay, I'd like now to add a Canvas app. Well, it's suggesting you use a Canvas app here, or it's suggesting a model-driven app from a compliance coordinator application standpoint. It's allowing the end user, again, this isn't a pilot, it's in the vein of Copilot working with us to say, hey, yeah, I want to start working with and building out these specific artifacts, these specific components of the technology. So let's go ahead and do that. By doing so, I come to the technology here. Again, I've never left Plan Designer, and I simply click the Create button for the Canvas app. And for those of you who have built a Canvas app in the past, it takes you directly to the Canvas Maker, the Canvas App Maker UI. You'll notice on this screen, it has provided us with 3 different sections that it believes, based off of the prompt you've given it, that remote field inspectors would need to utilize, right? They want access to wells. They'd want access to well inspections. And everything that you're going to see right now on these screens are things that the AI did for me. I haven't touched a single one of these components. Yeah. But as I come up and actually play this application to show you kind of what it looks like, you'll be able to see here that I can, select wells. I can see wells with some dummy data that's given us as part of the process here. I can see information on all those. If I come back to my home screen and I go to well inspections, I can see those well inspections, the date and time of these inspections that are in the system. I also have then the ability to create a new one. So you can see here, I can put a date and time in it. I can add things like my pH levels, my turbidity, its coliform present, etc. And I can continue to fill out all these fields. Now, the UI that you've seen here, the look and feel, like I said, is 100% generated by Plan Designer. You have every right to be able to go back in and configure that. You'll probably want to, pretty up a little with some images and some things that are more set to your organization. But all this comes straight out of Plan Designer itself. The other thing that comes out of Plan Designer, which is really neat here as well, is it based off of the data structure that you approved and you accepted, it actually builds in the relational data here. So it allows us to connect the well inspections table to the well name, as well as the inspector name of John Carter there, simply by putting those lookups directly into this form for this well inspection. So it does that automatically, and it understands that there needs to be a relationship between those things. So we'll go to well E here. We can go ahead and accept it. And we've created it. We've just created our first Canvas app in the span of a couple of minutes, right? And each one of these things, I'm going to walk you through kind of these things each moving forward here. The same can be done for any one of these elements here, right? We can look at a model-driven app. We can create that model-driven app. It performs the same feature. It brings up the model-driven app creator UI that many of you are probably familiar with seeing. Okay? And it's already kind of fabricated an application for you. The thing I want to make sure I point out here, guys, is that it's recognized our prompt because we've given it directions about what the compliance coordinator needs to see. And those directions are different than what the field folks need to see, right? Yes, they need to be able to review inspections that maybe were submitted by the folks in the field, but they also need to be able to schedule follow-ups and be able to issue notices and advisories. So the information that we're including in this particular application is slightly different based off of the prompt and the instructions we've given it as part of that particular user. So now you can see what's been created here. Again, a list of our well inspections. We can open up these as we can with any other model-driven app. We can see that well inspection. Again, that was submitted by John Carter on the 21st. We can also go back and we can look at other sections here as well. Here's our inspection follow-ups. We have the ability to create new inspection follow-ups. Or we have the ability to go in and look at a certain existing inspection follow-up as well. And for those of you who have built model-driven apps and built Canvas apps, you can start to understand that it takes time to build a form. It takes time to build a view. It takes time to build that data model and pop them all into this information. And what Plan Designer's done for us is it's taken all of that kind of that early runway work and done it all for us. And now we can come in here and just start configuring and say, okay, I don't want all these in one form. Maybe I want to split them into sections or make them look a different way, so on and so forth. But it moves that process along so much quicker, and it gives us a full view of this. The other thing I'll point out here too as well, and this is a small thing, I understand it, but for me, sometimes the small things are the easiest. When I'm working through this app designer, it's important for me to understand what I have and what I haven't done. Right. And so I just want to point on this page, you'll see that the Canvas app and the model-driven apps, we've gone from kind of that gray background of those logos to kind of that purple color. All that's simply telling me is, hey, you've already built out this application. This application now exists within that solution file that you created. So you can go to that solution file at any time. Because the reality is I may want to start this plan, start building the Canvas app, and walk away for a day. And I want to come back to this plan tomorrow and say, okay, what haven't I built out yet? Okay, I haven't built out that site or that Power Automate flow. I can come back into the plan and pick up maybe on an area that I didn't finish up before. All right. So as we kind of keep moving forward here, we're now looking at that site. And so you'll start to see a commonality as it relates to how how Plan Designer is handling this. It's looking at our prompt that we've given up front, and it's going through and making recommendations. Now, from a Power Pages side, it's asking us for some basic things up front. Hey, it wants us to, basic site details. If any of you have built a Power Pages website in the past, it does simple things like this as well, as far as, hey, what kind of site layout do you want? Let's try that again and give a different site layout. This one looks like it'll work, so we'll go ahead and move next in the process here. And again, by hitting next, it then takes us to that third page. Now, it's noticed that, hey, there are things like inspections and assistant requests and safety guidance that may need to be included as part of these suggested pages. So I can go ahead and click on this suggested inspection results page as well to ensure that that piece is included in my site. And the same way the previous prompts took us to the Power Apps kind of Maker UI, the same happens with Power Pages. It takes us to the Power Pages Maker UI. And if I go out and preview that site, again, this is out of the box stuff that's done. I can see all that information that's been added to this site. I can scroll down. I can see the different sections that have been added. I can look and see, okay, what do I need to modify or change? At the top, I can see the different pages that have been added to this site. My inspection results page, which I'll definitely want to have some information around safety guidance there as well. And then it also added in an assistance request page there as well. That includes a button to go ahead and submit that assistance request form there as well. So again, fast tracking us kind of through this process to ensure that we've got that piece in that component done. And you'll notice even the color change there from a site perspective. The last two I'll share with you here real quickly. I really like this one because in the world of Copilot Studio and agents, etc., I really like what it does here because not only is it creating the applications for us, it's also creating the framework for the actual agent itself. right? It's calling it a public assistant chatbot there at the top. And the first thing I'll point out is you'll notice that it's giving it already the instructions. I didn't have to come up with those instructions here. It's looked at the prompts, it looked at the context of what I'm asking it, and it's put in the instructions as far as what it thinks I would want to see. Now, as with any true quote unquote Copilot, it's always good and maybe get a human set of eyes on it. And there's maybe some changes I wanted to make to that, but it already provides that for me out of the box. What it also does, if I scroll down further here to the bottom of this page here, you'll notice that it also provides me with suggested prompts based off of my upfront prompt as well. What is it trying to do? How can I find information about my well? How do I submit an assistant request? Based off of what you've told it about your organization and the process you're trying to address, it provides you with those suggestions there as well. Really cool, really neat. And then the third thing it does, I really like this about it, is if we go back up to our knowledge section, you'll see that it's also adding the knowledge that is going to be required in order to answer some of those questions, right? So it's already connecting us to that well inspection table that we created in Plan Designer. It's connected us to that well assistance request table that we did in Plan Designer because it knows it's going to need those pieces of it. So what happens then once those things have all been connected? Well, let's take a look. If we move down into the corner there and just the test, we can ask some questions of it. What were the results of the most recent inspection for well E? And you'll notice what it does is it reviews those two sources up front, that well inspection. It finds that response, right? Most recent inspection results for well E there, as well as the reference resources. And then it provides that information in that chat response in the lower right-hand corner, and then also references the actual well inspection component you can see there as well. What it also does is if I ask a question that maybe doesn't look at it doesn't look at those specific tables, like is a pH level 6.5 good or not, it'll look at those two sources initially, but then that information isn't necessarily there. So we have it set up where this response was generated by using general knowledge from that language model, right? So if that answer isn't available within the actual tables we've given it, it will still answer that from a general response from that actual LLM that you've put in there as well. So really, really a quick way of spinning up these types of agents in a way that would take, quite frankly, just some time to do in the background. And then the last one I'll show you here is Power Automate Flow. Same concepts. We hit the create button, it references what we've asked it to do, and it gives us a template for what it thinks we need it to do, right? So when a row is added or modified, it gives us our business problem there at the top. It tells us what actions it's going to take. Okay? And if we click through this and move on to the keep it and continue section, it takes us back to that Power Automate UI. And you'll notice that when we click that top part, when a row is added or modified or deleted, on the right-hand side, it's already referencing the assistant request table because that's what this specific notification is around. Anytime an assistant request comes in, it wants to logically look at that assistant request table and see anytime something's been added. And then as we move down, it's also giving us what it suggests the actual results to be. In this case, it's an email. And you'll see on the left-hand side here what that email consists of, who it goes to, the content of that email, the subject of that email, already all prefabbed and set up for us based off of the information that we've given Plan Designer at the very beginning of this process. And now with any of these, we can always come in and modify these as necessary. But it's taken us so far from zero, if we're going 0 to 60, it's taken us so fast from 0 to 50 that now we can spend most of our time now on the back end tweaking things, making them look correct, maybe adding an element that we didn't think of when we were doing our initial prompt. But it's fast-tracked that entire process. So as I save that and come back to this screen, this is kind of the results of what you end up with, right? You end up with a Plan Designer where up front you've given it a business problem, right? You've given it context around what you're trying to accomplish. It's providing you with what it feels the user groups or the user personas would be as part of this process. It's creating for you the data elements that it thinks you need as part of this process. And then it's also giving you suggestions around which pieces of that technology you may actually want to build. And for any of you who have gone through this process and built out, 8 different data tables and built out a Canvas app and a model-driven app and a Power Page just to get those things up and running can take some time, right? Not necessarily difficult because it is a low-code, no-code platform, but it can take some time. And what Plan Designer does is it does that in a very quick way, logically understanding the context of what you've given it there up front. So we're super excited about this. It is, in talking with my colleague Tim just before the call, this question is being asked of us many, many times, and we'll talk a little bit here moving forward around who should be using this and also how to get started on this stuff. So I'll turn it back over to Tim to kind of hit those next sections.
Wow, fantastic, Joe. Really great demo. And I've seen it a number of times now, but each time I'm always just so impressed with how far AI has come. And so, yeah, the question we get a lot of times is who should be using Plan Designer today exactly? And the answer is everybody, but especially, first of all, the new developer, right? There's someone coming for the first time to Power Platform trying to figure out how to design an enterprise Power Platform-based solution with the platform, does not know maybe that Power Apps can be used for the UI and Power Automate can be used for automation and Power Pages can be used for public websites, et cetera, et cetera. So they might not know how every component can come together to create one cohesive, comprehensive solution. And Plan Designer allows them to just simply give us problem and then see the proposed plan that uses the entire portfolio to create a cohesive solution. So they should for sure be using it to learn from and build with to begin with. Next up would be the experienced developer, someone like me, for example, who spent a number of years now in Power Platform. And why, you might ask? Because as Joe mentioned earlier, building out that TCEQ use case alone, building out the data model, and then the Power Apps on top of it, and the workflows, and the et cetera, and all of it together, that alone, while for us might be at this point second nature and maybe simple, it does still take time. It might take me, for example, a day, 2 days, 3 days, possibly even more than that. So even though it's simple for us doing that, it might be in some ways very easy to do that. Using this system to quickly get from, like Joe said earlier, from 0 to 50, almost all the way there, to the first draft, first MVP, first iteration is a massive time saver and allows us to do our best work by quickly going from point A to point B, and then from there sprinkling in our expertise. Now there's also a third persona that should be using Plan Designer, and that here is I want to show today, as we wrap up today, one more sort of hidden trick, if you want to call it that, of Plan Designer. Now, some of you here might know what solutions are, but solutions are essentially packages of resources, like, for example, tables and apps and stuff like that in an environment that pertain to a certain use case. And if you're an admin, you might go to your environment and say, oh my gosh, I can now see tons of solutions out there. I don't know who owns these, what they're for really, and getting an idea over what they do is quite challenging. In fact, there's a feature in Plan Designer where you can go to your solutions for an environment. You can hit the ellipses for the solution. There's an option there to create a plan from a human-built solution. So I have here, for example, a solution I made with Kelly, in collaboration with Kelly on the call today, called Evie. Evie is, of course, a very hard to figure out acronym of what it does from that alone. But for all of you here to know, Evie is a system I built with Kelly for law enforcement, for officers to capture photos of a police vehicle, and then an AI system on top of that will then classify the damage and save to Dataverse. And there's a number of tables in that, as are AI models, as are apps, etc., in that solution. But nowhere in that solution do I describe to anywhere, to any point, what that does. And what's incredible here is I can have Plan Designer create a plan retroactively for Evie, examining the contents of that Evie solution. And it can very easily go from that pre-built human-made solution into a business problem of what it does, technology of what I have actually in the solution, from the apps, the workflows, Power Pages, agents, etc., and the underlying data model behind that solution. So I can now see as the admin what the solution does, why we have it, why we own it first of all, what technology might be involved in it, and the actual data sprawl and data footprint of that solution. So in my opinion, the third persona that should be using Plan Designer, of course, is the admin, someone trying to understand and maybe prevent app sprawl and know in their environment what's going on right now and how can I control that. So it's a really great way of quickly wrapping your head around an environment's solutions. And with that, I hope you're all inspired today. So Joe will share with you how to get started.
Yeah, so obviously Plan Designer, we're super excited about it, if you couldn't tell already. It's something that we are showcasing a lot, and with some of the great work from our product team and some of the folks within our team, we're super excited that it's in GCC. I mean, this is something we've been clamoring for a long time, and we're excited for everybody on the call here today that you'll have access to it. So just a few things on how to get started. Okay, great, Joe. I've never heard of Plan Designer. I'm not really sure how to get into it and learn a little bit more. First thing I'll tell you is there's a lot of self-help training out there. Okay, there's a lot of information on Plan Designer right now, and I've included a few links on here, and we'll send this out to everybody after the fact. But there's blog introductions to it. We have our own Learn training on Plan Designer from within the Power Apps piece there, and then we've got a great MVP community out there on YouTube. For those of you who are trying to learn something about Power Pages or Power Apps in general, Power Platform, there's a great MVP community out there. And these are just a few of the ones that I found that are super helpful to get understanding. The next thing is, if we move forward, one is actually your own unified partner training and engagement. Right? If you have unified support as an organization, your CSA, your EDEs, those folks that you meet with on a regular basis can walk you through this. Okay, this is great for them to be able to help you kind of learn about as well. And then we've got a great partner ecosystem. There's a handful that I know of that are out there who are really looking at this. Accenture, Hitachi, Merck. There's Compass and IW Mentor I found, which is actually have some great links available on their websites. The thing I will say is that each of these are a little bit regional based, right? So if you do have some questions and you'd like to reach out to a regional, or you already have a relationship with your partner, ask them, hey, have you done something around Plan Designer? Can you help train us on this a little bit? Because that's a great piece of it as well. Okay? And then the last one I'll mention, if we can just toggle the last one there. For anybody who's looking at going to the Power Platform Community Conference in a couple of weeks in Las Vegas, we're actually going to be announcing this as part of the Power Up program. If you're not familiar with the Power Up program, go check it out. It's powerup.microsoft.com. It's a great educational program, which essentially places you into a cohort, and you go through multiple weeks of training as it relates to that particular whatever particular path you're on. Well, Plan Designer is going to be in that. Right. And so super excited to announce that here as well. You're getting a little bit of a sneak peek, even though I've been given the okay to tell everybody about it. But that's going to be officially announced at Power Platform Community Conference coming up here in 2 weeks in Vegas. So those are all options for you to get started on it. As always, if you ever have any questions, you are welcome to reach out to any of your Microsoft representatives. You can reach out to myself, Tim, whomever, and we can get you connected with the right person as well. But we're excited to give everybody the tools to kind of get going on Plan Designer. And with that, Kelly, I'll turn it back over. I think if we advance it one screen. There we go.
Beautiful, beautiful session. Extremely informative. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like every time I play around with this or see it in action, I'm always just like blown away. It's, when you talk about AI, you talk about the advancement of productivity, and, it was a huge thing previously to go, 2x productivity. This is 10x, right? That everybody talks about, where you're building tables, apps, agents, everything all in one, which is fantastic. It's amazing. With that, I've placed a couple things in the chat. If you can, please fill out a survey. It's 2 to 3 questions. It takes 30 seconds just to know, did today's session meet your standards? As well as, if you have any suggestions for different things in the future, if there's other things you want them to cover about Plan Designer or other capabilities, please fill that out. We also have upcoming sessions that I've placed links for in the chat. So if you're interested in joining our session next week or things that are already scheduled for November, please go ahead and register for that. In addition to that, we have a little bit of time, so I'm going to open up both the mics and the cameras and stop the recording here. Give me 2 seconds. We'll stop the recording. And, I know